Hi, I'm Colin Anderson, and I lead strategy and innovation for Accenture's global Workday practice. And I am so excited to be here talking about Accenture's 2019 tech vision. I'm here with Leanne Levensaler. Leanne is Workday's SVP of Corporate Strategy and Managing Director and co-head of Workday Ventures. Leanne, I'm so happy to have you with us here today.
It's wonderful to be here, Colin.
So maybe before we get too far, talk to us a little bit about your role and your priorities.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And it's just a delight to have this conversation. But in many ways, I feel like we've been having this conversation for 10 years, the same one.
Yep.
Obviously new additions to it. So my role at Workday, I've been at Workday 10 years now. And my role has evolved from running product strategy to running corporate strategy. And in corporate strategy at Workday, our mandate is really to look on the frontier. So what are the new markets, new business problems, new value we can create for our customers and help grow our business? And in the context of corporate strategy, we also last February 2018, we launched Workday Ventures.
Yeah.
And with Workday Ventures, we're making exciting investments in early stage companies that are focused on using some of the cutting edge technologies we will be talking about today and that are in the technology vision to really help solve problems for customers in new ways. And so we're excited about those investments.
And I hope that's what people take away from today's discussion is how do you prepare today for what's coming in, frankly, the not too distant future? And that's what the tech vision is all about. So our theme for the tech vision is all around the post-digital era. So it used to be that you were doing digital, you were doing technology. That made you different from your competitors. That's not enough anymore. Everybody is digital. Everybody is investing in that space. And so our clients need to think about what do they invest in that makes them different. And so our tech vision really paints sort of 5 post-digital principles that we'll talk through that people can start acting on today to take us there. But I really think it all starts with the people. Everything starts with the people. And our first trend is all around the human plus worker.
Right.
We know that technology is changing the way that people work. And I think more interestingly, it's changing the way that the work actually happens itself. We think about small teams, nimble teams, these types of things. And we've got to have a new technology paradigm to be able to satisfy that. We did some interesting research, and 78% of the executives that we talked to said that the technology velocity, those changes, is going to have a material need for them to reskill their organization. And for me, one of the most interesting things was 90% of jobs they said are going to be impacted by AI alone. Half of those significantly. So the impact is here, it's now. So Workday's doing a lot in this space. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you see some of these new technologies influencing work, people, and their skills, and how we harness some of that.
There's no question that automation and machine learning is fundamentally changing the way that we work. It's really changing or disrupting our talent practices as we've known them. So the same principles we've held so dear for so long, organizing principles, practices that we've had, they all need to change. We need to adopt new ways of approaching skills development.
Absolutely.
Every role will be reshaped. Some more than others. Some roles will be intermediated. New roles will be created. But every job is being touched by technology in a pretty profound way. As you said, companies, top of their agenda is how do we upskill? How do we reskill? How do we really think about investing in the future of our company by investing in our people? But there's some inherent challenge to that, and a lot of it had to do with some systems challenges and some understanding what they have and what they need, and how their systems did not really support them in that endeavor. And the way we've been looking at it at Workday is across the entire life cycle for workers. And I'm using workers, not employees, purposefully here, but really looking at all of their needs and all the talent practices that we've supported and how are they being changed? How can we take that same technology, machine learning, that's changing our business and then apply it to help be the answer, to help reskill, upskill, develop people inside the organization. And when we looked at that, we said, well, one of the things that we lack is a universal language of expressing what we have and what we need, skills, right? And we lacked a universal language and ontology for that. Together with our customers in a big coalition with our customers, we've developed what we believe is the first true universal skills ontology that's shared across all of our customers. That same library, if you will, that same set of skills is then fueling all of the talent practices by serving as the connective tissue, if you will, to help make recommendations, to, understand who might be a good mentor for you, what might be a good learning experience for you because of the job you're in, the role you have, the experiences you've had in the organization. So, we're looking at this holistically, and then we're really trying to zero in on a unit of measure that could give us incredible leverage and actually can be the fuel for machine learning. The skill is actually the fuel for the machine learning brain.
And I think what's so great about that is you get the technology in place, you get the skills ontology in place, but it also drives a cultural change. People need to be lifelong learners, but it gets everybody working in the same direction in thinking about what should I learn? What are my opportunities? They're speaking the same language, and I think that helps to accelerate some of that.
Right, because how I define something as a manager might be different than another, even within our own company.
Totally.
Let alone outside the organization. We're trying to connect to opportunities outside of your organization.
Absolutely.
So when we share in this common language, we can make the labor market, the skills-based labor market, much more efficient. And that in turn helps really fuel different talent practices around learning and development for an organization. It's not the answer to everything, but it's certainly a critical way that technology can help improve skills development.
I love it. I love what you guys are doing on that. Our next theme, which we call Get to Know Me. So we're collecting data. We've got this common skills ontology. We're all speaking the same language now. We've got a lot of data. Now we need to decide what to do with the data. How do we unlock this data? Because there's so many tremendous things we can do with it. But if we're not careful, we can also verge into the area of creepy. And so it's important that we think about, okay, how do we establish a bit of a quid pro quo relationship really based on trust? That if we're collecting information and mining information about people, that we're returning something of value back to people, whether that be opportunities or whatever it might be. We did some interesting research around the time of Davos and found that the difference between losing and earning trust had a 12.5% difference in revenues, about $3.1 trillion globally. So the impact is huge to gain this trust from people. And I know this is a big deal, how you think about data and how you think about trust, but share a little bit of your thoughts.
Well, first I would say I think that there's just an incredible opportunity to use these intelligent technologies to actually create a much more human experience by use the word personalization. I love it. We do too. One of the big investments we've been making at Workday is in what we call the people experience. How do we create an experience that is, contextual, it's relevant, it's just for me, right? So yes, it's software and it's made for your entire organization, but my experience is just my experience for Leanne. It knows what I need when I need it, right? It anticipates things, makes recommendations, helps me find things, reduces friction.
Valuable for you.
We've been investing in using these powerful technologies to create a really, I would say, much more delightful and easy experience for me at work. And as part of that people experience, it's not just about, let me go find this document. I'd like to make that a lot easier in companies. Trust me. We are getting after that. But in addition to it, I love the phrase you all have been using for years called the moments that matter. And that is also in the technology vision. I was happy to see it there again. Love it. We also use that phrase. And the moments that matter for us have really helped us define how we architect for journeys, right? Because, a moment that matter might be the first time you join a company, the onboarding experience. You got to get that right. As a company, you got to get that right. And now how can you use these intelligent technologies to facilitate that and make that much more engaging, much more efficient, remove all that friction, and just make that amazing first impression for people. And so we think that there's power in using data to make it more personalized, but also much more delightful and much more human of a work experience. And so that's good. And then you asked the question about trust, which is, trust is in the fabric of everything that we do, right? Trust and security. And I know we're going to talk about that. We think it's important, given the profound impact that machine learning and data have on society and work.
Yep.
We think it's important to take a leadership stance on this, and we think it's important to communicate out what we believe, our ethical framework, our true north, if you will. And so last year we published, and I know you know this, but our privacy principles. And our privacy principles really say we're going to innovate responsibly.
Yes.
We're going to put privacy first, and we're going to design and all of our practices, technology and as well as our business practices, to safeguard for fairness and trust. And there's a lot that comes up underneath those. That's our commitment to our customers.
Yeah. And I think those were so great when they came out because they were simple to understand. Anybody can read them, understand what it's going to mean for them as people, them and their organizations. And you talked before around these ideas of moments that matter. And I think the biggest shift that now the technology and journeys allows us to do is to get away from sort of linear process thinking. Mm-hmm. That's not how business works, and that's not how us as employees care. We don't care if you're going out on leave, whether that's in finance or payroll or HR or in operations or wherever it sits. You want to be able to go out on leave, make sure you're handing things off, and then return back in a seamless, easy way. And we actually talk about some of that in the Tech Vision as well, and sort of this momentary markets we call my markets. Is how do you take these moments and just do something really sort of special with them? Right. And there's not a ton of them, but the ones that are out there, they really do matter. Right. And it's important to get those right. And I think it's changed how we work with our clients. We used to be so linear in the process thinking. Right. And now we're able to pull everybody together to say, let's orchestrate something really, really special across these groups.
And if you know a lot about the person, you can make it hyper personalized or contextual to them. So for example, if you know my location, if you know what my interests are, if you know that I have other children, if you know if I've been out on leave before, think about how that can change the overall experience, the way I message to you, the way, if you're a first time mom, I mean, that first time I went out and I was having a baby, way different than the second time. Yeah. Let me just be clear about that. And so the more we know, and not personal information, but the more we know about someone, the better we can create that journey.
So we talked about trust, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on security. Mm-hmm. It's so important. I heard a stat recently that in the first 6 months of 2018, 3 billion identities were stolen. Mm-hmm. And there's only about 4 billion identities out there on the internet. And so there's clearly issues. We all see about it and then read about it in the news every day. Mm-hmm. I know security has been so core to Workday since day one, but maybe touch just briefly on how you think about security.
Well, it's core to everything that we do, right? And it's our responsibility. We are a data processor, right? Trust is our business,
absolutely.
Right? Absolutely our business. And we need to be transparent about all of our practices around security with our customers, and they need to advance and evolve the state of the art constantly. So it is not we built it once, trust us, let's go. Right. It's constantly refining in partnership with our customers, leveraging the best technology to ensure, the best experience for people. Yeah. But, we understand it's our customers' data. It's not our data.
Such a key point.
It is really important, and then that is pervasive through everything we do. Technology, but also business practices, and then who we hire and how we train them and what they adhere to. So it goes from the organizational level, the architectural level, all across our operations as well.
You touched on journeys, and there's multiple systems, processes, sources that hit those. And if you don't have security through the APIs as well as the application and everything, you really create weaknesses. Right. And I think that is where Workday shines, really frankly, is it's very deep and wide as far as how you think about security.
It all goes back to how we're architected. Yeah. We are an in-memory system. And I'm not going to geek out too much here because I'll quickly get over my skis. But what I would say is that we can encrypt customer data, the most discrete attribute, and we do in our system. And that is really important when you think about how we can secure it within the context of Workday, but also how we treat our APIs, right? And secure it. So we encrypt all data that coming in and out of Workday. Very important.
Underpinning everything is really technology. And we talk about DARQ, D-A-R-Q, not a typo, but distributed ledgers, blockchain, things of the like, artificial intelligence, extended reality, and then quantum computing. Some of these things, they're here and now. Artificial intelligence, we interact with it every day in so many different places. Some of them are still around the corner, quantum computing, for example. Right. But Workday's always been on the leading edge of thinking about technology. And I know you spend a lot of time thinking about what are these different trends and what do they mean for you and for our clients. And maybe share some of your thoughts there.
as you mentioned, some are a little further along, and certainly further along in our own development and rendered in our product. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about machine learning today, as part of, and we're also doing quite a bit, as you know, with a distributed ledger, because again, we're a trust environment. So the distributed ledger gives us a lot of opportunities to solve problems in new ways, which is exciting. And a lot of that work on the frontier or the vanguard of technology for us starts in our labs environment. And our labs environment is, we're not just there, again, we said this earlier, but we're not just there doing it ourselves. We're there alongside of our customers, right? We are prototyping things. We are, working with technology to see, could it have an impact, learning, refining, experimenting. And then we share that with our customers, but we also encourage our customers, and I know you do as well, we encourage our customers to do the same with technologies, right? We want them to be experimenting because we want to take the learnings that they have, bring them into our fold, and the learnings we have, bring them into their fold. And so that's the wonderful thing about being in technology. Is you get the opportunity to do a lot of experimenting as well.
Nobody has all the answers on their own. What's been so important to us, certainly over the last couple of years across all of Accenture, is this idea of co-creating with our clients. How do we come together and create something that neither of us separately could have imagined?
Right.
And that's really become a core part of our values. And I know it's a core part of the values that you have. And when we put Accenture together with Workday, together with our clients and prospects, that's where I think that's where our best work comes from. And that's where you really get the most remarkable things.
Right.
And I think that's what makes us so great together. I mean, we share this idea of putting the client first. We've got so many of the same core values, and hopefully we're able to bring that to our clients every day. Living some of these ideas from the tech vision and whatever is going to come next year, I'm sure that we're going to be closely aligned there.
Well, the tech vision for us it's an interesting touchstone in some ways because, we do a lot of the frontier work as well. We do a lot of research.
Right.
And, we develop thesis on areas and spaces, technologies, and then we wait. I sort of wait, and here's another geek moment for me. I sort of wait with bated breath for the technology vision to come out and say, how closely aligned are we?
Yes.
And what can we learn?
Yeah.
And what I love that Accenture does with the technology vision is you talk about the synergies of these technologies and what together the technologies can bring to the experience, whether it's for customers or employees, but to the overall experience. And I think that's an incredibly valuable resource for our industry. And it really pushes us forward to think about what is that 1 + 1 = 3. So we're grateful for that and grateful for how it influences us in our own development and strategy. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to keep living this, and we've got a new one coming out, and we'll have that moment again. And I hope you and I will have a chance to sit down this time next year and talk about it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.